Hello, welcome. I got a stack of 3x3 cards here. And we're going to do some pebble outlining this evening. Hope that you've all had a chance to be working on your art and taking it easy, getting transition to springtime. We're going to work today in the horizontal format. I've been doing vertical for a while, and I'm not sure about that old vertical format. It gets a little tedious, so I think tonight we'll just switch it up and go with horizontal. And let me know in the comments if you guys have a preference one way or the other. I think the chat's a little bit easier to I think it's a little bit easier to navigate for viewers when it's in the horizontal format. So I've been away for a bit. I have been working on a few drawings. I'm just taking care of some life stuff and anyway, here we are now. There's another drawing. I had quite a stack of these, a couple dozen of these 3x3s, just hanging out and waiting for some other layers of paint. And I think, I mean, you can kind of see by the colorway here that they're more kind of the greens and nothing too screamingly bright. So I wasn't, frankly, I wasn't feeling too inspired. And sometimes that just happens. That's just, we go through phases with our work where we are more or less fired up, I guess, creatively. So sometimes I get into these, I get a few layers into them, and then I'm just not inspired. And that's just part of what it is to do creative work. So, pardon me a minute here. We'll get into it. I'll get that pen going here in a second. Alrighty, there we just needed to get the chat window up. So if you're new to the channel, what I do here is prepare backgrounds on watercolor paper using various water media. These particular group of squares have watercolor paint, some marker, and a few of them have something called Brusho, which is a watercolor ink crystal. It's a powder, and you sprinkle it on, and it can make some kind of intense, really saturated, brilliant primary type colors. And when it dries down, I'm noticing that there's a bit of a crystal left on the surface sometimes, so kind of new to this media, and we'll see how it goes. But it leaves an inky deposit, which is more concentrated than some of the diffuse watercolor. Now let's just start in. Sometimes that's just the best way to get into the creative mode. I immediately think that's too wide. What I've got here are archival ink pigment markers. Ernest, hello. Good to see you. How are things in your world? Thought I'd try the old, the blue one looked like stained glass. This one? Or the, these guys. I have to, I kind of got myself to a vertical groove, so I have to readjust and make allowances. I've got things set up for horizontal format tonight. Let me know what you think. If it works or doesn't work. Whew. Gonna mix up the pens a little bit. They're different widths, so the line will vary. Ernest says it looks like it's forming a turtle shell. The colors in this one aren't super bright, but I kind of like the subtle changes between the gray and it's almost a purple gray, and then there's a bit of a peachy color. And that bright yellow chartreusey green. Nice, Andy. Welcome in. Just always wonder if you guys are on insomnia crew or if you're just up early and getting ready for the day. I've just been working on a little of this and a little of that. Experimenting with some more you're in Australia. Ah. Well, thank you. Sandy Hill says, I've been missing you. I'm in Australia. I've just needed to take a couple, I know it's been a little bit longer than a couple of weeks, but it's just, sometimes we just need to take a little downtime and try to get ourselves back in sorts. And it's, it's been a little bit of a struggle. But somebody reminded me the other day, if you live stream and people come and hang out and socialize a little bit, have a little interaction, and that can help replenish the creative fire. So it just seemed like every time I tried to get a live stream going, either I had something come up or internet didn't want to connect or didn't want to sustain the signal. So it's just part of life. It's sometimes we do struggle. Yeah. Sandy says, I appreciate what I can get. It seems to be a world struggle at the moment. Right? Runic Workshop. Hello. Hello and welcome in. I saw your short of that skateboard deck and the layering Runic gets on airbrushed metallic paints is just, it's amazing. That sunburst behind it really was. I'm still trying to get my brain wrapped around how you figure out where all of the where all those layers go. And I'm pretty good at three-dimensional visualization, but I think Runic has really got it. This has just really got it now. dimensionality, I guess is the kind of the word I'm looking for. So, oh. Thank you. I hope you were well this morning too. I hope your temperature is not so brutally low. Sounded like you're going to be in for it for a few days there. We've had, I think I told you, you were saying it was going to be really cold, and I was like, well, it's been kind of not cold out here in Oregon. And then yesterday, it hailed, and the wind was just rattling the awnings, and some really intense weather going here. So that's kind of spring. Like, we like to think of spring as being sunshine and, oh, the temperature warms up, but I think actually includes quite a lot of stormy weather. And it was not a cold storm. It was fairly warm outside, which almost is a little bit more worrisome because, well, I think when you've got a high wind and the temperature's warm out here, we do get the occasional tornado. Which it's not my favored weather mode. Low 30s. Ooh, that's winter weather, that. I guess unless one is up at altitude, then that seems more reasonable. But I live pretty close to sea level, so 30s is pretty cold for this part of the world. So I've been experimenting with adding in some lines and bringing some texture into the drawings with just a little bit of something different besides just the circles. Anytime you're working on a theme over time, if you work with it long enough, you will have your style evolve. If we look back at some of the early drawings, they tended to be more just contours and outlines, more simple. And then as I've gotten into it, things have gotten just a little bit more decorative, a little bit more artistic. And I keep bringing this one up. This is one of my most recent ones, and I had been looking at this blank for a while, and I just kept envisioning a piece of rock that had chips taken off of it, And if the rock has a glassy structure rather than a more crystalline structure, when you flake a chip off of it, or chip a flake off of it, I think it might be a more accurate way to describe it, there'll be these conchoidal fracture lines. So I just kept having that in mind, and then was seeing more crystals, maybe like a quartz crystal shape in the background. So this was really a departure. So your pattern taping, you had, yeah, so you, while it's cold out there, you'll be out working on the taping stuff out and making it have, 17 layers instead of just 7. Okay, any color preference for our next drawing? I like to try to have a variety of things ready to go. You just never know quite what's gonna... quite what you'll be in the mood for. Runic says, my old stuff was very simple, and then just over time started getting they just started getting crazier. Yeah, it evolves, right? It should. It should. That's okay. And sometimes the best way to improve something, if you're painting a particular subject and you feel like, oh, I don't have the hang of it, to keep doing it. Do it again and again, and with repetition, you build your skill. Let's go with this fluorescent orange one and see where we go with that. I use these drawings to warm up before I do more complex pieces. They're really not intended to be works of art in themselves. Not saying they're not art. I mean, I think anything that is a result of human creativity we could argue that it's art. But sometimes I find it's a little bit daunting to come to the table and confront a big blank piece of watercolor paper, whereas these little squares of paper are much less intimidating. So if you've got, maybe got your watercolor pad, got a block of cotton watercolor paper here, and I've probably been looking at that for a week and a half, just not sure what color I wanted to start with, not sure which brush I wanted to use, 15 other excuses. And it just happens in creativity that we go through these periods where sometimes you just come right to the workbench and just dive in, and other times you come to the workbench and shuffle everything around for 2 hours and not get anything done. So I find that I often need to warm up my hand to get the hand-eye coordination really dialed in. So a small no-fault exercise like this is just, it's good to use as a warm-up. And I'll work away on these until I find myself in the groove, and then it's much easier to just switch over and get the paints out, get to the paper. So this activity is a part of the strategy of getting ready to work on paintings. I can tell I'm getting into it because I'm more dialed in with the way the pen is moving on the paper, and it gets a little bit harder to narrate what I'm doing. That's a good sign to me that my brain is moving into creative mode and out of the thinking about 27 reasons why there's 45 things that need doing before I can paint or do any creative work, right? And it's not procrastination so much. It's a bit of an executive function challenge that people with ADHD can find ourselves really struggling. Probably all humans find themselves struggling, whether or not you have ADHD or autism or any of those neurospicy challenges in life. I got some blue and orange happening here. So, what do you folks think about the horizontal? Do you prefer it? Does it make chat a little bit easier for you? Let me know. I really got dialed in with vertical in terms of using the 4x8 sheets and working in that format. And one thing about that format is for me, it holds the chat window open all the time. With horizontal, the phone is a little bit easier to deal with, but the chat will appear over here, and then it's just there for a second, and about the time I look up to read the chat, it disappears. So I don't know if there's a setting or if that's just how YouTube works. So it would be preferable to me to have the chat hang on the screen a little bit longer, but if the horizontal format is just easier to watch for you, then it's really not that big of a deal for me to stop and tap the screen and bring that chat window back open. So sometimes when I look at these, they look like there's really not much, like they just look very smooth, and there's no obvious places to outline the pebble shapes. But then when you get going, there are subtle differences. And because there's absolutely no incorrect way to mess up a little square of paper with a pen, doesn't matter too much. But I'm always surprised at something I might look at and go, well, you know, what do I see there? Like this one. But as soon as you get the pen into it and start working with it, you do find there are places. Where's another one? This one looks kind of... Yeah, just at first glance you might look at them and think, oh, well, I don't know. I don't see an obvious spot. But once you outline one and then another, the pebbles start to make themselves known. And you really can just impose a shape wherever you want it. If you want there to be a pebble there. But because of the media, watercolor paint does tend to have variations. And you add in that texture of the watercolor paper and between the media and the paper, there's just some magic that happens. Switch down from an 03 to an 01. So I've noticed recently the drawings that I've done have been less rounded and more irregular shapes. But I can't really say that there's any particular meaning to that, just an observation, I suppose. I suppose that's life. Sometimes things go smoothly, sometimes things are rough around the edges. I've been working with these 3-inch squares for quite some time. I think we might have. Just realized, yeah, we're coming up on April, May, June, 10 months. And also worked with the 4-inch by 8-inch format and some 6-inch by 6-inch. After working on larger paintings and then also having just done so many of these 3x3s, I'm finding that they are a bit small. And no, I've got the camera up away. Usually I have the camera a little bit closer to this surface, so I know, like, it's a lot of frame with a kind of a small drawing in the middle. But it probably, after I get done with this group of 24, I probably will not do more of these tiny format paintings. When I started, it would take 20 minutes anyway to do one, and now I can work through the 3x3s pretty quickly. So when I started, a 3x3 worked as a pretty good warm-up, and now at this point, because I can work through them pretty quickly, I'll do one and I'm still not, my hand isn't warmed up, my I have without going into a whole laundry list of physical ailments, but I do deal with fibromyalgia and with some arthritis, so my brain often has this idea of just exactly where the line should go, but then my hand does not execute that, and I've had to warm up so that I can literally get the hand-eye coordination dialed in. And when I first started with these 3x3s, they one would be sufficient to get me warmed up. But now, because I can sort of grind through the outlining or move through it more easily, it's not really a grind. It's actually pretty enjoyable. But one is not enough to do the warm up. So I think I'll probably just go to maybe some kind of a format that works well with commercially available frames. So if I have one that I want to frame, then I won't have to have a specialty mat and frame cut for it. Let's go to that little pen again. Sandy says that she too is challenged by that and that the weather impacts her. I don't notice the weather too much. Or not exactly, but inflammation impacts me, and I get allergies, seasonal allergies. Which I guess come with the change of season, so sort of weather, but we've got a lot of pollen because it's spring here in Oregon. So maybe environmental impact might be a better way to describe that. Runik's making a bold move out to the workshop. I love it. Pretty cool to have some space that is so enticing to you that you just can't wait to get out there, and you don't mind if it's you have to put on the coat and Sandy says probably heat affects her more, though sometimes high emotions and it can feel like you have the flu. Yeah, uh, inflammation and our immune systems can really impact us. And then when you're dealing with chronic pain, those one of the tactics to deal with chronic pain is to distract yourself. And I find creative work is a really effective distraction for me because it occupies my brain, and then my brain's not just idling, going, "Oh, I hurt. Ow, this sucks. I'm suffering." So it can help to alleviate the suffering if you can find some activity to engage in that literally distracts you from the cognitive component, right? Part where you're listening to how you're thinking about a situation. So sometimes, okay, a lot of times, when it comes to dealing with the pain, what I want to do is just to find a comfortable spot, a sofa, bed, someplace where I can be horizontal and just take the pressure off my joints, take the pressure off my back. I've had a number of back surgeries, and the problem is once you're kind of prone, when you're in that position, there's not a lot to do except just have your brain thinking about what your body is experiencing. And once you're in that posture, then it's kind of difficult to do things. And so the entire experience becomes, oh, wow, I'm really like I'm in pain and I'm suffering. And I won't say that creative work necessarily eradicates the pain, but it gives you something to do instead of just think about it. And that can be a break from pain. Oof. Got myself into a tangle in that little spot there. So finding some respite from pain is important. It becomes easier to endure pain if you can just get a break from it every now and again. Oh, it's always a trick to know. Enough lines and not too many lines. I actually really am liking this little outline. What the heck? Let's just do lots. Sandy says, once you're focused on the pain, the struggle becomes harder. It's true. It's like it will fill up your consciousness, and it will overtake any kind of higher thinking, just because it's really connected to your survival. Pain is a message your body sends to your control center that lets you know something's wrong. And so when you've got that going on, when you're tuned into it, it's a survival mechanism to pay attention to pain. But when it comes to chronic pain situations, we just reach points in our life where you've got to live with it. That's the reality. There's not. You've probably already done everything you could do. Talked to the doctors, gone to the therapy. And chronic pain is in some ways a bit of an artifact of modern living. It's due to our success. If you think about a couple hundred years ago, it would be really unusual for most people to live beyond age 45 or 50. And you get sneaking up into the 60s, and you're living in this physical plant that just really wasn't designed to have this many miles on it. So I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate. There are a lot of people who also are in the world with chronic pain, and we know quite a lot about it. We've studied a lot, and it's quite a few strategies to live with it. You know, that's kind of cold comfort when you're in the midst of flare-ups, and particularly if you've got some sort of a new ailment that newer pains are a little bit more challenging than older familiar pains. There's something a little different there. Might come in with some gray. I think the black is going to be a little bit too dark. Might come in with some gray and make these background pebbles. Shadow down so that we've got some contrast, and the rocks will pop up and the background will drop back. And alrighty. Well, we're coming up on an hour, so I guess we'll run a little art show here, what we've done today. This was one I was working on today. Earlier I wasn't on the stream, but I had the background of this color in, and then I swept across with just a cross-hatching of another color and outlined the interstices, the kind of negative spaces, and then sketched in some exactly, Sandy. Yeah, just sketched in those little backgrounds and added some contour lines. So that was a pretty quick and easy one. And when I got done with it, I thought, oh, I'll use that technique again, because you generally try to put the paint on in kind of way that where it's not particularly circles or lines, and just try to blot it on in very unstructured way. And this one, I had this wash of color, and I just didn't feel like fiddling around with it too much. So we'll do more of those. Here was tonight's first painting. So we've got some neutral gray purples and some that pop of that olivine or chartreuse color. Really, really love chartreuse, and you can tell in my colored pencil and my crayon or pastels. It's always the color I run through the fastest is that any kind of yellow green. Playing around with a few contour lines, just mixing it up from the outlines, and also using some oh, Sandy, you're fine. They're your words. If you want to retract them or put them out there or double them up, I'm all for that. I've seen some forums and some channels where they're just like they're going to screen record it so that somebody can't retract their messages. Oh, fiddlesticks to that. You do what you want. You're great. Yeah, so we've got some 10 lines and some 3 and even some of the 01 in there just to add a little bit of visual variety to it. Irish Mart. Good to see you. Yeah, well, alrighty. And since Mart is here, well, let me find a gray pencil and we'll work some of that. I wasn't sure how long I was going to have the video go today, because I know, when you get out of the swing of live streaming 2 or 3 times a week, you do that, people, the numbers tend to be up, and then when you don't live stream for a while, the numbers, they're in the basement. So, I knew it would just be a small, intimate crowd tonight. I keep hoping, I hope the notifications go out, but I'm not quite sure. Is anybody really sure how that works? Too green. Great mystery that is YouTube. There is, Irish Mart says consistency seems to be the key, but there is always replay crew. And there is always replay crew, which if you are watching here on replay crew, hello, welcome, thank you. I appreciate you. Yeah, thank goodness for replay crew. So I also I think with the time, I stream at what is the nighttime in my time zone here on the west coast of the United States. So it's in the middle of a lovely morning in Australia. Let's see. 8 hours from Ireland. So it can be a bit of an awkward, and even if I was streaming, mid-morning West Coast time, that would be an awkward time for people in other time zones in some way. So it's kind of a roundabout way of saying that it's always going to be a replay for somebody somewhere. Something popped up there. Sandy says some of our recommendations, the YouTube recommendations, make you scratch your head, especially when you don't always get notifications. Yeah, I know, it's wild. Get the craziest stuff just coming up on the, like the, I don't know if you guys are like me. I do fall into scrolling through the shorts feed, and it's like, really, YouTube? You think what? What? What in the world? What in the wide world of YouTube are you trying to feed me? Some nutty stuff. Also, some terrific stuff. Not too long ago, they started, the algorithm started to feed me something called Garden State Tortoise Rescue. And I don't know why. I would not keep turtles or tortoises as a pet. I wouldn't keep amphibians of any sort as a... I mean, I've got a house cat. I'm good with that. I don't... Yeah, I don't need anything that... Although, I have had fish tanks in the past. The fish is a little bit different, but... Yeah. YouTube's... the algorithm has a sense of humor. I don't know if it's humor or if it's just like, it's, let's see what I can get them to watch today. It is so random as to be amusing. Yeah, just really. Anyway, so this guy is in New Jersey, which is the Garden State. That's the... And he runs a turtle or tortoise rescue. Turtle and tortoise rescue. And he's so enthusiastic about it. And he builds these pens for the tortoises to go live outside for as much of the year as they can live outside. It turned me into, like, Sunday mornings. I'm like, is there a new turtle video? Okay. He never knew I would... Never knew that would be an interest, because, I mean, they're okay, turtles. No objections to them. But I got really invested in this one little turtle that somebody had found the thing out in nature and brought it in and turned it into a pet, although captive might be a better word than pet. So the little box turtle spent the last 50 years crawling around on somebody's kitchen floor and eating cat food, which that's not a proper diet. And I'm guessing you probably could buy Purina turtle chow, because they make chow for all kinds of creatures. But apparently turtles, like the box turtle that this little turtle was, are meant to live in an environment where they're in and around water, and so this one had spent 50 years just, not in the right place. Anyway, he's giving it a bit of rehabilitation, and it's kind of remarkable. Because apparently even something like a small box turtle can live 80 or 100 years, which is probably doing better than most humans. And thank goodness for the turtle rescue, because these people who are, they get turtles as, captive pets, and then you got this animal that, oh, Sandy says she watches Leon the Rescue Lobster, but he didn't make it through his last molt. Was he big? I think okay, I may or may not have seen a few lobster videos as well. There's Jacob the Lobsterman, that channel, and they had a quite large, very old lobster that they tried to set up an aquarium for, and he just didn't do too well. I can't imagine going from the ocean floor into a tank of any kind. Um, One of the things that I used to do was scuba dive, and I'll tell you, once you get down to the ocean floor, it's such an amazing world down there. So many things to see, and I think it'd be really hard for an aquarium. Um, hmm. Irish Mart says, sort of seeing a beetle in the middle. Yeah, I could do that if I would think about it before I turn it into a rock. I just get a little fixated on the rocks. Ernest was here earlier encouraging me to find turtles, and he's not wrong. I just have to see it before I've committed to the pebble shape. Alrighty. Well, that puts us over an hour. I think that'll do us for a stream today. If you guys want to leave it in the comments if there's something you've been watching and you're just surprised that YouTube, that the algorithm fed you something, and oh, Sonny says the lobster gets rescued from seafood markets, and so they don't end up on somebody's plate. Yeah, it is kind of rough when especially you see those big ones, and you're like, man, that lobster was crawling around for, and most of the lobsters you eat will be male. Runic Workshop. You are very welcome. There's nothing like hanging out with a little bit of another artist, just telling you to just go ahead and get in the paint and mix it up and make it happen to help get your day started. So I'm glad to be able to encourage you in that way. And you just please know you do the same for me. So if you guys have not had a chance to check in on the Runic Workshop, just some amazing things going on there, and a nice variety of things too. Like here, if you just want circles on paper, I'm your gal. We do a little bit more than that, but it is fairly predictable with the circles on paper. Runic Workshop is just doing a variety of really cool things, and I especially enjoy the airbrushing with the metallic paints. I mean, anything shiny and sparkly is just going to get a thumbs up in my book. So, leather goods today. All right, I saw that. I saw people in your post telling you that they had some that there were some things that were belts and keychains and whatnot. So yeah, check them out. And if you leave a comment, if you're on Replay Crew, leave a comment on something that you enjoy. I enjoy the 7-4 Gear channel where the guy's a pilot of I think he flies a Dreamliner. He flies, the kind of the biggest plane out there, and he breaks down aviation videos. And I'm not a pilot. I don't fly terribly often. I like airplanes well enough, but surprisingly, it's just funny the sort of channels that get popped up. But if you've got one that just you think other people might enjoy or that you enjoy, just drop it in the comments and keep being artful. Keep pushing through, and thank you. Sandy Hill says, "Thank you. This has been fun. Wishing good health and safety to all of you." I think that's a good place to leave it. Everybody, be well, make art. We'll see you next time. Bye.